Welcome back to our disappointed show on the eve of the Scotland game. We were very getting maybe psychic, optimistic about the game, but anyway, it fell like a pancake. Final score tonight was Scotland 0, Greece 3. Greece won 3-1 on aggregate, and it was a terrible performance tonight. Basically, like if you watch the first half against Greece, Greece against Scotland, it was the opposite performance from that. It was very poor. Joined tonight by Robbie, and Ethan will be on as well soon. Robbie, let's get into it now. Obviously, we might talk about youth football a few more times before the end of the hour at 8 o'clock. I mean, what was your views on that performance tonight?
I mean, where do you even start, Michael? This game just had so much in it. I mean, first of all, before we obviously dive into Scotland, credit to Greece. They came at us. We knew what they were going to do for the first whistle. To be honest, I think Stephen, the Greek journalist, would even be surprised by how all out they came at us. I thought it was a dominating display. I actually thought if you take the first 20-30 minutes, I actually thought we were better than Greece. Obviously they get the opening goal, but I thought we controlled the game quite well. Obviously McTominay has a few chances, but look, we don't take them. And I did say on the pre-show, don't let this 17-year-old guy get the ball, because he will create goals, and he's the reason Greece were 2-0 up at half time. So look, it was disappointing again. I'm going to try and not be too negative about Clark. There's obviously a lot going on social media right now about Clark and his future. That tonight, though, it made me lose a bit for him. I don't know what it is. I'm slightly more worried now getting into the World Cup qualifying campaign under Clark than I maybe was before the game. To me, he made the changes at the complete wrong time. I don't even think he made the right changes, in my opinion. Everything just did not work out for Clark tonight, and I think he's got to take huge responsibility, as does the defence. I mean, look, one thing I've not even seen mentioned online yet is the captain, Andy Robertson. What impact did he make as a captain tonight? There's guys in the midfield like Billy Gilmore that are trying to drag the team forward, and Robertson's just standing back there. Like, I think questions need to be asked of people like Robertson and the manager as well.
When you make a point about Andy Robertson there, Robert, it reminded me of the last game in the Euros. I can't remember who that was against now, but he was posted missing on that game as well. And before we bring in Ethan, I've got to say, well done to Greece. They done a very professional job coming away from home as well. So well done to them. Ethan, we built the game up as though we were confident, but after the first 25 minutes, the confidence was shattered.
Yeah, I think Scotland just underperforming is what I'd call it. I think if you look at the two teams, I think Scotland, we have enough quality to beat Greece at home, but they were brilliant. They attacked well. They took their chances brilliantly. Scotland never looked like scoring at all. We had a few glimmers of hope in the first sort of 20-25 minutes. I thought McTominay started the game really well, actually, winning fouls, getting up the pitch. But yeah, they took their goals really well. The first two goals before half-time, both really similar goals. The boy Kostantilias, I think he was called. First goal, he finds himself nowhere near him, and around the penalty spot. It's a good finish. And then the second one, he gets the ball and then spreads it out to Karetsa. So, well, you take nothing away. It's a world class finish, but too easy, two very easy goals. And then the third one to start the second half, we hand it to them right off the kickoff. And again, just cut right through us with some brilliant play, but I think we gave the goals away too cheaply. And against a good team like Greece, don't get me wrong, they will take advantage of that. But I think, as Robbie said, I think Steve Clarke and the players as well need to take a lot of responsibility for this one, because it's simply not good enough. No way you should be losing 3-0 at home. We've played better teams than that recently at home and not lost by anywhere near that margin. So I think it's inexcusable. It's worrying because we've obviously got to play Greece twice again in the qualifying, and we're going to have to play Portugal or Denmark as well. So I think you'd have to be the most optimistic to say you had any confidence of us getting to the World Cup at this stage. And I think, to add on Robbie's point, I think the substitutions were too late. And I think Steve Clarke does that sometimes. He leaves the substitutions until after after something's already happened on the pitch, where you want them to sort of make the changes to stop something happening. I think when you go 2-0 down, I think you've got to make the changes at half time, not after they've already scored a third and pretty much wrapped up the game at that point. I think we talk about Lewis Ferguson not starting the game. I think you've got to start your best players, and I think a Bologna captain. Not taking anything away from Kenny McLean, but I think a Bologna captain, he provides a lot more quality than Kenny McLean does. And you're playing Ryan Christie out of position. I know Ryan Christie didn't have a great game at all. Gave away the ball for the third goal. But you drop him back next to Gilmore, put Ferguson to where he played the other night, you've got a lot more quality in that midfield. But from the whole team didn't show up tonight, and we got punished, deservedly so. Credit to Greece. And now we'll be in Nations League B, and we'll have to fight through that in 2 years when it comes. But the World Cup's up next, and I'm not very confident, to say the least.
Robbie, Annalino makes a good comment on YouTube. He says, I'm scratching my head at Clarke. Well, I think 50,000 just tonight by putting in Ryan Christie ahead of the Italian midfielder, the likes of Ferguson. And I think that's why we lost the game. I think we were talking about that before we came on, Robbie, about it's all like Brendan Ferguson on, and you alluded to Ethan about the making the subs towards the end of the game. But again, too late, Robbie. The damage has already been done. If you were going to do that, why not bring them on at half time?
Yeah, I mean, like I said it on the pre-show, I think it was a bit of a mistake not picking Ferguson for this game, especially after the way he played on Thursday. I was expecting it to, be an unchanged team, and I think some Scotland fans, I think we can be quite a fickle bunch at times. We're very much Hanley and Ralston had a good game on Thursday, but after the game today, we're like, why did he choose them? It's just looking back at the game and the way they sort of played. But for me, Ferguson should have played in this game. I mean, look, if you're going to bring in a guy like Ryan Christie, play him where Bournemouth, who are 10th in the Premier League and can go away to places like Spurs and get draws and, beat a Nottingham Forest team that are on such a good run. Bringing a guy in who doesn't play really out in the wing for Bournemouth to then play him out in the wing for Scotland, it's never going to work. It's not what he's natural. It's not what he's good at. I think that was a massive mistake. And look, it all ultimately comes down again to Steve Clarke. I mean, Michael, how many times, after the Euro games, did we come on here and give Steve Clarke stick? A lot of people wanted him out after the Euros, and I try and I'm one of the most optimistic Scotland fans you meet. I sort of stuck by him after the Euros and said, look, give him the World Cup, he's deserved it. But I'm looking at the World Cup qualifying and going, is that a manager that can get us to the World Cup? Is he the guy that can take us there?
I don't think he is. I was on the bandwagon of I thought Clarke should have went after the Euros. I thought the performances and the results were, apart from Switzerland, were inexplicable. And I thought he should have went after that. Because I know he got us to €2. That a lot of credit's got to go to that, go to him for that, because he's given us Scotland fans some of the best moments in recent history. But I think he is blessed with one of the best squads we've had in a while. You look at some of the talent we've got in midfield. We've got to be beating teams like Greece if we want to have any aspirations of going to a World Cup. Don't get me wrong, they're a good team. They obviously won it at Wembley, but you look at the players they had in tonight. Some really young players, inexperienced. We've got some of the best midfielders playing at the best clubs in Europe, and we can't even register a goal against them, and we concede 3. So I think Steve Clarke, I think he's on a fine line, but the thing that goes on his side is he's not got another 2 games until the end of the season. They're 2 friendlies, and then after that is the World Cup qualifying campaign. So I don't think he's going to go unless he walks himself. And the other problem with getting rid of Steve Clarke is, who else is there to get in? We had maybe the option of David Moyes, who I think David Moyes is a really good manager. I know he's a little pragmatic like Steve Clarke, but obviously he's went on to Everton now, and he's doing well there, so he's no longer an option. So if you were to get rid of Steve Clarke, you'd maybe be shooting yourself in the foot, because there's not anyone else Scottish managers wise that you think could really sort of take the helm. Maybe you go for a Derek McInnes, but he's obviously not doing too well at Kilmarnock at the moment, so it's a difficult one.
I don't think this will happen. Sorry, Michael, just to ask, right, I don't think this will happen, and it might sign a deal come the end of the season. What if Scotland want to take a punt on Barry Ferguson if he doesn't take a Rangers job? Well, for what we've seen so far with Ferguson at Rangers, he knows how to get the best out of that group of players in the big games. He's not exactly a defensive manager like Clarke or your Moyes or anything like that. He's an attacking manager. He likes to go forward. So I don't know if it would happen. I don't think it would. I think he might be set up for the Rangers show. But would anybody be against the likes of Barry Ferguson coming in?
I think when it comes to Barry Ferguson, I think it's too early to call him now. I think with Barry Ferguson, we've seen see if he goes on a really good run with Rangers, like wins almost every game until the end of the season, barring the Europa League. If he wins every league game, gets a good result against Celtic again, and then puts up a good fight against Bilbao in the Europa League, then I think you can say Barry Ferguson is a good manager, definitely in contention. But I think it's too short of a sort of span to go off so far. I know he's got some really impressive results, but he's also had some poor results. Motherwell especially. They lost at home to Fenerbahce, although they did go through. So I think it's too short of a sort of sample size to pick from. But if he goes on to the rest of the season and does really well with this Rangers team, and shows that he's got this sort of, because I think, I don't know if I made this point on here, I know this isn't really Scotland related, but I think he has tactically, maybe not him individually, but as a group, the coaches have made a tactical difference to Rangers. He's obviously went with a back 5 in a lot of games, and I thought against Celtic that worked absolutely brilliantly. And that's not something we've seen under Clement, so that's a change that him and his coaching staff have made. So he shows that he's got maybe that tactical nous that's maybe people doubted him and laughed at him for not having. So I think he could be definitely a candidate. The other one that you could maybe put forward, who's doing very well at the moment in the Scottish League, is maybe David Gray. I think he's done a brilliant job at Hibs so far, but it's whether he would want to take on that job. But we're both talking about 2 pretty inexperienced managers, so it shows that we're kind of scraping at the barrel for options here, which is not the best thing to have. And I couldn't really think of any sort of managers outside of Scottish managers that come to mind either. So
it's funny that we're having this conversation, because no, I mean, I would say no to both of the names that you mentioned, just because of inexperience. But if you compare that to Stevie Clark, he's got 10 times more experience than Ferguson and David Gray put together. And look, he's not getting it right on the park as well. The other thing I was going to say, guys, was I know that me and Robbie had a wee chat before we came on air, but Ethan, see if I was Miller, Scott Wilson, and Hull, I would be so disappointed going back to it about their respective teams, because Hull got 15 minutes over 2 games. Scott Wilson had you're lucky if they had 15 minutes tonight, and where the game was over when they came on. And who else? And Murrow, I would be so disappointed for that guy. His confidence must be shot to pieces after the video that Murrow put out and the week before he get called up. And fair play to Murrow, they make a big thing about it and all that. But I mean, to be given the co-op and not to be given a chance, surely it's going to be a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely for players like James Wilson and Lennon Miller, who, they maybe prepared themselves. I think James Wilson probably would have prepared himself to get little to no minutes, because he's all there along with 4 strikers who are probably ahead of him in the pecking order. Lennon Miller, on the other hand, I think you could genuinely make a case to put Lennon Miller in the team. I think he's shown his quite. I've said about this on the Thursday's episode, so I'm not going to say it again. But I'll just quickly go over it. I said about how unless you throw him in, you're never going to know how he's going to turn out, kind of thing. But I think for Lennon Miller not to even get a minute on the park is a little bit disappointing. But we've got 2 friendly games coming up next, so hopefully they're all fit and ready to go, and hopefully Steve Clark uses it as a chance to give young players a chance, because realistically, I don't think anyone really be interested in seeing the likes of Kenny McLean and your Grant Hanley's getting games in these, because we want to see the kind of young and up and coming talent get their chance. And it's 2 friendly matches, so what's the worst that's going to happen, sort of thing. But I thought James Wilson didn't really get in the game much when he came on. I think the only thing I can really remember him doing was he gave the ball away and Greece nearly scored. But yeah, I don't really know what the plan was with any of Steve Clark's substitutions tonight. Looked like he was just kind of picking people to put on rather than looking for any sort of way to get back into the game. But it was already too late when you're 3 goals down in the night to an aggregate. So yeah, but disappointing for those clubs, because they've obviously really excited to see their player go and get the chance, but obviously they've got little to no minutes for both of them.
Well, I was just going to say, I know what Ethan's saying about bringing these guys to friendlies, but you're not going to learn anything, because they're not games that you're going to qualify for World Cups and Euros. So what's the point of? I'm not saying what's the point of putting them in because it's a friendly, but what are you going to learn? Because I mean we've seen that every week with Watson, Hearts and Motherwell. I mean, they're scoring goals for fun as well. Everybody can see it, so why not put them in tonight?
Yeah, I mean, even with friendly, we're not seeing these guys. He's not even picking these players for the friendly matches that we're playing. I remember I got the unfortunate privilege to go and watch Scotland Northern Ireland when they beat us 1-0. That was a pretty bad game, but even in these type of matches, we're still not seeing these players. So it's, I get your point. We should be putting them in these games, just see what they're made of, but we're not even getting to see them in the friendly matches like some people are saying. And another thing as well, just quickly, we sort of spoke about Christie, and we know the way Clark likes to play now with these sort of wingers. Where have Ryan Gold and Lewis Morgan gone? They had glimpses in the team. At least if we're going to play with wingers, at least play with 2 people that are at least somewhat experienced in playing in the wing positions every game.
Even Graham's asking you a question in the chat. So if you're watching Graham on YouTube, he says, Ethan, who do you think needs to be taken out of the squad, and don't say the whole team, Ethan.
No, I think it's not about really who needs taken out. I just think for two friendly matches, as you touched on there, Michael, they've not really got any jeopardy behind them whatsoever. So I think you just try to get as many of the young players that you think could have a chance in the future. Your Max Johnstons, who else comes to mind? Your Lennon Millers, your James Wilsons, your maybe even your likes of your Bobby Wales. Just get as many of the young players in and try them out. And try the players that haven't had a lot of minutes. Play players in different positions, their right position. Try Lewis Ferguson in the position he plays for his club. Try Ryan Christie in the position he plays for his club. And maybe you'll get a better outcome rather than try to shoe all these players into a team where they're all playing in unfamiliar positions. It's all well and good having the best midfielders, but if you're going to play them out of position, then it's never going to work.
And that's the thing, Robbie. Like, football's not a difficult game. These players that are playing in positions, do not move them out of position, or do not ask them to play a different system. Leave it the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I should say football. It's not a difficult game. I just don't. I don't see a world in which I'm looking now at the World Cup fixtures. Obviously, we're still yet to find out who else is going to be in our qualification group, but I'm looking at a world and going, right, well, we're not going to the World Cup, because I'm looking at that Greece game. How easy was that for Greece at home? I'm pretty confident we will beat Belarus both times we play them. But I'm looking at the other two games and going, right, well, we can't beat Greece at 2 games. I know we did obviously beat them away there. I'd still argue we got quite fortunate in the game, but we did get the win. But I'm looking at these home games now against potentially Denmark or Portugal and Greece both times and going, we're not going to win any of these under Clark. I genuinely don't see a world in which Steve Clark switches this team around. That starting 11, I think, will be the starting 11 he plays when we go to our first World Cup qualification game, which again is just going to make people even more mad. And in a night where there's a lot of Steve Clark outshouts, it's hard to deny that you want him. It really is. Even the most optimistic Scotland fan are starting to lose the patience with Clark now.
Yeah, I think sorry, Michael, just to cut in front. Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think with Steve Clark, I think the last thing that you could say with Steve Clark where we really felt good as Scotland fans was qualifying for the Euros. Since then, even the end of the Euro qualifying, it went downhill. We were slumping through games that we really shouldn't have been. The Euros was terrible. The start of the last Nations League campaign was terrible. And then, okay, we've done well in the last 3 games in the Nations League, but you could argue it was too little, too late. We still went into this relegation playoff, and then okay, we get a wee bit fortunate the other night and get the win, which another night we could have lost that match very easily. And then tonight we got what we deserved. We lost, so I have absolutely no optimism going into this World Cup qualifying. I think we would be lucky to get second. Really do. And that would be a big backward step, because at least in the last 3 qualifying campaigns, obviously we've qualified for the Euros twice. In the World Cup, we at least got to a sort of playoff round. To come third, I think would be a massive backward step. And I think if Steve Clark leaves after that, then he's already he's left on a sort of sour note, where I think if he leaves before the campaign, then maybe it's less of a sour note, if you know what I mean. But I think he is going to try and fight it out. He'll believe in himself to get the squad back in gear and guide them to the first World Cup in a long, long time. But I think the mentality will also have taken a massive hit, because Greece absolutely strolled it tonight. You've seen it. They absolutely strolled the game. And that was after making 6 changes. So you just think about it. Would we make 6 changes? Imagine we made 6 changes to us starting 11. So yeah, that's the kind of the things that you've got to think about. But yeah, it's really worrying times for Scotland. but hopefully we can turn it around. Get a bit of optimism. But no, I've not got any.
By the way, I've just realised that you made the point earlier on about David Moyes, Ethan, right? But we all forget that David Moyes won a European Cup, albeit it's a Conference League, but it's so what? It's still a major kind of like competition at the end of the day, and I keep harping back to this comment, Robbie, and I'm sorry for saying this, and it's only took me 26 minutes for saying this on the show. Yeah, a young man that scored the goal for Greece tonight. We were talking about him on the pre-show. He came on in the first game against Scotland. He looked fantastic. And the difference is that Greece flung them into basically the fire, the lion's den for tonight's game. Scotland don't seem to do that.
No, I mean, like, again, going back to before the game, we were on the preview show, and obviously it's very easy to look back now and go, oh, Clark should have done this, should have done that. See, after Thursday, let's be honest, way off going into the game, that team wasn't going to change. There was no reason to change it before the game. I think the biggest frustration is I didn't change it during the game quicker. I look at 3 out of the back 4, and I genuinely think they all could have been off at half time. I thought Robertson, Hanley, and Ralston all had a pretty poor game. So I think, although yes, we should be giving these guys a chance, we just go to do it quicker. It's so baffling to me. And another manager that I think somebody put in the comments earlier, would we ever take a punt on Ten Hag? Would he ever take the job?
I don't think he would.
I don't think he would. I think that's a bit too optimistic, but I'm genuinely just scraping the bottom of a barrel. I mean, I'm looking at the free agent managers, and there's some really bad ones on there. I mean, I'm looking at Sam Allardyce, and I'm just laughing to myself, going, if Clark was to get sacked tomorrow, who would we actually appoint?
Graham Marty, I think. Graham Marty might come out the woodwork as well.
There's always Craig Levine.
Yeah, but I mean, in all serious, guys, I mean, Scotland, back to your point earlier on, Ethan, about Stevie Clark and all, like, he's done a brilliant job. Like, he's got us to a level that we've not been for years. But I mean, I think a lot of Scotland fans would get fed up with Stevie Clark at the last Euros. I mean, look at the Euro over in Germany. I'm not even going to talk about Germany the first game, because we were up against it, and Sansky, like Ryan Potiers as well, getting sent off. But I mean, look at the other 2 games. He was very negative in his tactics as well. And for the last game to be played, I mean, I think we scored the goal in the last kick of the ball. And if I'm right in saying McGregor missed a brilliant chance at the to put Scotland through to the next round. I think it was McGregor anyway. But like he's did well, but he can't. To me, guys, I don't know if it's just me looking through my eyes at the game, but I mean, I feel as though that he can only get us to that level, but he can't get us to the next level.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And I think that's where you need to. It's a harsh game, football with managers. And I think once you've hit your ceiling as a manager, you need to move on. I don't think he will move on himself. So I think that might be on Scotland to do that. But I'm not really like Steve Clark needs to go because there isn't much else really. If there was like a clear candidate there staring me in the eyes that I could see, and I thought was going to be a better manager for Scotland than Steve Clark, then I would be all for it. But I really don't see that there. So I think that might be why Steve Clark maybe stays on. And look, he said he's going after the World Cup campaign anyway. So I think in the Euros, the performance against Hungary especially is the one that comes to mind. Because I didn't think Hungary. I thought they were going into the game. I thought Hungary would be better than they actually were. I thought Hungary were quite standoffish and were really there for the beating. Scotland just never really attacked the game. We had a lot of the ball, but never done anything with it. And it's just really disappointing. And you look at the recent run of games, unbeaten in 4, 3 wins on the bounce, and then just this comes out of nowhere and just shoots their confidence down again. So yeah, it's what it's like to be a Scotland fan, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, sorry,
yeah.
Mike. I was just going to say we've gone 30 minutes into a show, and it's funny that we've no. I mean, look, I don't claim Scotland to be a one-man team, but I'm looking at players now, and I'm going, Ben Doak is really something for us. We need him to be in this team. I think the last sort of games, even you mentioned how well we played, all came through him. So I think Naismith mentioned it during the game as well, that he seems irreplaceable to us. We need to try and make sure he's back in this team as soon as possible.
Yeah, the only thing I would worry about Ben Doak is he going to be like an Aaron Hickey or a Nathan Patterson or a Kieran Tierney even, where he's not always around and injuries are a problem for him? I know he's only a young player, but we see that with so many players and their careers are just hampered by injuries, and it's a real shame. So hopefully, I think one of my friends made this comparison in the past. Hopefully, Ben Doak can be a sort of Gareth Bale, that player that's going to that winger that's going to carry us to the next level. Because you look at what Gareth Bale, I mean, his career speaks for itself, especially internationally. So if Ben Doak can be sort of half the player that he was, then we'll be on to something.
I mean, Robbie, obviously when I'm watching the game, I take notes about the game to talk about on the show. And I'm sorry to say that I've only wrote down about 3 notes from Scotland here in the whole game. McTominay had a few shots at goal. McGinn had a shot at goal before obviously Greece scored. And then, as I said to you before we came on here, second half, Scotland had no shots in goal. And that was the summary of the game.
I think 3 notes was generous for you, to be honest with you. Really, there was not much happening. As you said, the only chances I can really remember is in the first 30 minutes when McTominay had a good few. Obviously, I know there was one that took a deflection out, but I mean, on another day, like maybe I can do better with him. But at the end of the day, we weren't good enough. We didn't deserve anything out of that game. Greece came. You would have actually thought that leg was probably over at Greece with the way they handled that game. It was so professional, so easy. And I just, it's Scotland. There's no much more to say. It's just Scotland. We get so excited over the last 5 games. You know, we're drawn with Portugal. We're putting in good performances here and there. And then, you know, just as we think, all right, we're progressing here, you know, we got a 1-0 victory away at Greece, we're going, yes, we're finally looking up. We just shoot ourselves in the foot again.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's really sort of sobering, I think was the word that the commentary team used when you could eventually hear them, because obviously at the start of the game there wasn't any commentary. But yeah, just really disappointing because I thought we would at least compete in the game, and we never got close to Greece at all. The goals, especially the first one, I think McFadden it was that said it was really good play from Greece down the right hand side, but I don't know if it was. It was pretty easy. They just kind of worked it down the wing. They got the 2-on-1 with Robertson, then found I can't remember his name's escaping me. The man in the middle who had lots of time to find the corner. It was just too easy, I think. And if you give a team of Greece's level that sort of space and time, they'll punish you, and they did. And they were well worthy of their 3-0 win.
And now we're joined by a special guest on the show tonight, Bobby Madden. Sorry, that was a joke. If you remember the first game, is that Bobby? I can see over there as well. But yeah, I mean, look, guys, it's the same as the last campaign as well. I mean, this has been like this for years. Scotland gets you so much on the high, and you end up, it's like a roller coaster. Like you end up high, and then you go down low. It's the same with the last campaign that got us to Germany. I mean, beating Spain and Denmark. Norway.
Yeah.
The last minute goal, and then you go to a European campaign like that one in Germany, and you know we were back into earth again. Normal Scotland, normal service has resumed.
Yeah, I mean, look, during that run, where we seemed to beat everybody that was put in front of us, that was a pretty special run at the time. Look, I think we all knew at the time, no matter how good that run was, it wasn't going to last forever. That's unfortunately not how football works, but at least we thought at the time we've got a standard. We've got a way of playing where we're never going to really be below this point, and it's never really going to be the way it used to be watching Scotland. In the sort of past half a year to a year, in my opinion, we've gotten weaker somehow, and I can't quite put my finger on it. I don't know what it is because the team's not really changed that much, but we seem to have gotten weaker in some areas. I don't know how big a miss maybe the likes of Callum McGregor is in the middle of the park. Obviously, the midfield is still really strong without him there, but when he was in there, it was a demanding guy. So I don't know what it is, but in the sort of half a year, it's been a really changed Scotland in my opinion.
I'm going to come back to that comment that you make there, Robbie, because obviously, Ethan, we're not here to talk about the game last week, Celtic and Rangers, but a couple of people were saying to me that Celtic missed Callum McGregor out of the Celtic team, and I'm thinking, oh, well, wait a minute, Celtic had enough to beat Rangers, and that's the same with Scotland tonight and over the weeks. Scotland should have enough to beat teams like Greece and all that, but we'll come back to that comment in a minute. Robbie's got a few comments from Stewie Clark that he's made after the game.
Yeah, Clark said Greece were the better team on the night. We started okay, had one or two half chances. They scored their first attack. We didn't get back behind the ball quick enough and we didn't create enough. That adds up to a disappointing night. This is the next sort of paragraph that interests me a lot. It says, I'll go away and look at myself to see what I could have done better. Maybe I didn't make enough rotations. Maybe I could have made more to freshen up the team. That's the sort of paragraph that I look at and go, aye, I think he's probably right when he says that.
Yeah, but it's the with Clark. I mentioned it earlier. It's the realization rather than the sort of actual seeing it in the game. I mean, that's not something we want to be hearing after the game. We want you to sort of see that coming, if you know what I mean. And at 2-0 down, I don't think we were awful in the first half, but we were just, I don't know, something was missing. And this is the worst Scotland result for a while. I'd say maybe even back to Ireland away.
Yeah.
In terms of the kind of expectation and just being shot down. And that result turned out to be immaterial in the end. But this one obviously is going to relegate us to the Nations League B, which it could bring us a sort of Euro playoff for the next Euros, because the next Nations League will be before the next Euros. So it could be positive for Scotland, but we spoke about the sort of positives of being in Nations League A in the pre-show. So it's disappointing because you want to be playing at the highest level, but yes, it's about picking ourselves up because it's going to be really difficult, especially when we've got, I mean, our next competitive match is against Denmark or Portugal away. So I mean, that one we'd be very lucky to even take a point from that one, I think, at this rate. And then you've got Belarus away, which should be a win, but you never know. If confidence is low, then we might struggle. And then we've got Greece at home, so and then that's all three teams in the group played, and then we'll just get the reverse fixtures of that. So yeah, I don't know. It's quite difficult to see anything positive out of this game, but yeah, we'll just have to wait to see what happens in the game, which starts in 5 minutes between Denmark and Portugal, and then we can sort of plan our aspirations, which I don't have many at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, even not to be too, negative. I mean, I look back and I know it was only a friendly, but I look at the Gibraltar game, when we're away in such, high temperatures, and we struggled a lot in that game, even though it was only a friendly. So I know it's a laugh, and, but we should comfortably beat Belarus, especially over both fixtures, but, not to try and be too negative, but I'm looking at that and going, if we're struggling against the likes of Gibraltar and we've struggled against a lot of weaker nations in Belarus and Gibraltar, I'm looking at Belarus and going, is it going to be as easy as we think it's going to be?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you guys remember Kazakhstan. We beat them 1-0 and we get booed off the park. and that's
Yeah.
a weak. That's a weaker team than what you were saying there. You
Yeah.
know, and a couple of comments. Alexander Rutherford was saying he was at the game, and she says the game was rubbish. I'll go say that as
Sorry,
well.
Alexander.
Um,
Apologies, you had to go through that.
I want to get back to Robbie's point, Ethan. So you were along at the Celtic game like last week, likes of was I was. Now Rangers got a boost because obviously McGregor wasn't playing, and the lights as well. And obviously he's your captain. He's supposed to drive the team on as well. But as I keep saying to people after the game, one man doesn't make a team, and maybe I could say the same about Scotland. McGregor's a big miss because the Scotland squad. So was Scott Brown. So was you know you can go back so many years, but one man doesn't make the team. But in saying that, that's the issue at the moment. We haven't got a Scott Brown or a Callum McGregor or whatever in the middle of the park and G people up and win 50-50 tackles. We just haven't got that.
Yeah, no, we haven't. And people at the ground certainly were booing when we took Billy Gilmore off, but I think we always take Billy Gilmore, or Steve Clark likes to take Billy Gilmore off before he'd take the likes of McTominay or McGinn off. And I don't think Gilmore had his best game, but I don't think any of them really had a great game at all. I mean, the scoreline speaks for itself, but yeah, yeah, it's just disappointing. I think you could definitely make the point that we lack character, but maybe this is just all very reactionary because talking on the pre-show, we were talking about how this isn't a new turn, a new chapter for Scotland. We're going to beat Greece. We're going to charge on to these qualifiers. We're going to. Regan made a big point about whether we played Denmark or Portugal, but I mean, ultimately, if we played them tomorrow, we would get battered. So I mean, yeah, just how quick it can all turn. We've all built ourselves up, but yeah, it's a really disappointing at the moment. But it's Steve Clark's job to get the players back on side, get them back up, and get them back playing with confidence and playing to the capabilities that we as fans know they can do. Because it's not too distant memory. I know it's 2 years ago now, but when we beat Spain, when we beat Norway, when we put in a very good performance against the Netherlands, although we lost 4-0, when we went toe-to-toe and arguably should have beat Switzerland in the Euros. And then even in the last break, beat Croatia and Poland and drew with Portugal before that. So Scotland's a team that's very capable of doing something as a nation, but it always seems to just elude us. And when we were talking about dropping points against Belarus, maybe the one thing that I remembered was when I think it was the 2018 World Cup qualifying where we drew against Georgia away or something like that. This is before Georgia were anywhere near as good as the team they are now, because at the moment they're probably a better team than Scotland are. I've seen the Georgia won 6-1 tonight in their playoff game. So yeah, it's tough to take. And yeah, I think we do lack character and that real leader, possibly.
I might be negative here, Robbie, right? Because they call me Mr. Negative sometimes, but that quote that you read out from Clark, read me that again. I can't remember what it was exactly. Did you say something about I need to go away and look at myself?
Yeah.
The quote was, I'll go away and look at myself to see what I could have done better. Maybe I didn't make enough rotations.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't think most of the attack army would buy that.
No.
I think I don't buy it. I think Clark is one that comes out after the games and says the things that he should have been thinking before the game. But it is a valid point. He should have made rotations. He should have made the changes. It's just unfortunate that Klopp decides to say it after the game and no before.
Yeah. I wonder, by rotations, do you think he meant just changing the team?
Yeah, I think that is what he meant, especially in certain areas. I think even after that 1-0 win, in Greece, you could have looked at some positions. And I'm looking at the fullbacks and more particularly Robertson. And I think there maybe could have been a change in there, in my opinion. Now, I get he's Scotland captain. The chances of Steve Clarke ever dropping him is really low because he is the captain. But I look at the way Robertson was with that 17-year-old on the day in Greece. Did not think he was good enough. I actually thought Tierney was very good up against him. I thought he marked him right out the game. So he came into that tonight, and Clark would have known. Although you don't hear till the team sheets for us, Clark would have known that boy would have played tonight. 100%. He would have looked at it and went, "He's going to play." So for me, Clark, I think, could have set up much better against that Greece team.
Yeah.
Well, I think we said it on first night. I don't know. I think you definitely said, Nathan, that he was a stick on Capri, and you said that on first night.
Yeah, I think he changed the game. I don't know if he independently changed the game the other night, but he definitely had a massive effect on it. He wasn't always producing the best end quality. I think his first kind of involvement in the game, he should a shot away all of the bar or a cross. But you could see the quality, just the confidence, the touch, the skills, and they just brought more end quality tonight. That was the difference. And yeah, you would have known he was going to play. I think most people had watched the first leg. I mean, it would have been baffling if he had been on the bench again, because no matter his age, we always go back to the saying: if you're what is it? If you're
old enough,
if you're old enough, you're good enough. So yeah, I think he was always going to play, and I would agree with Robbie. I don't think Robertson dealt with him enough. I think Robertson showed good moments going forward, but going backwards, really, really poor. And I know I keep going back to Kenny McLean and me seem like a bit of a scapegoat, but it's not his fault, because he's been a solid servant to Scotland throughout his career. But I think you've got Lewis Ferguson. I know I've said this already. Bologna captain, fourth in the Serie A Champions League team this season, and you've got Kieran Tierney, who he doesn't get a lot of minutes at Arsenal, but I don't think anyone's questioning the quality he has as a player. And you can switch the shape up to a 5 to get Tierney in, or you can just put Ferguson straight in. And I think if you're playing a Norwich City player, no disrespect to Kenny McLean again, he's been a great servant to Scotland, but I think international football, you've got to play your best players. And Kenny McLean, I don't think he was brilliant the other night. He done his job, but I don't think he was, we need to keep Kenny McLean in the team. And I think when Christie coming back, I thought Christie would have went in for McLean, but Steve Clarke always seems to play McLean, and I don't know why, but he does. And another thing that I questioned, going into the first leg, although it worked, I think the only reason we were playing a 4 at the back was because so we could get Ben Doak in as a winger. But Ben Doak's not here. We've not got any wingers. We've not even got any wingers in the squad. So I don't know. I'm not a manager, but I don't know. Just some of the decisions from Clarke are a wee bit questionable, I think.
Let's go even lower than that. Sorry, Michael, just quickly. Let's go even lower than Norwich. Even, I mean, you look at Birmingham and we're playing Grant Hanley, who's playing in League One and barely getting any minutes. Yeah. I mean, that really comes up when you've got guys like McKenna and Hendry on the bench, who, in my opinion, are better centre backs than Hanley. Although, again, I bring it back to Thursday, where I think you're right. I think McLean did only do his job. I think although he was good, I think he wasn't excellent. Whereas I look at Hanley and I've probably been a bit too harsh because although you look back now and you probably, anybody probably wouldn't have picked Hanley on the way the game went, but he was always going to get picked, I think, after Thursday because, let's be honest, if we're being real, he did actually have a pretty good game on Thursday.
Yeah, and that was the same with Ralston as well. But I think if everyone's fit, these players aren't playing for Scotland. But then again, what other centre backs are we bringing in that are going to play instead of Hanley? And I think I don't know how you can justify playing someone who's got, I think it's 42 minutes this calendar year for a League One team, although they're a very good League One team. And then you've got McKenna who plays week in, week out for a La Liga team. So yeah, I can't see that. I really, it's strange to me. And Kenny McLean, I think, would play almost no matter who was fit, which is crazy to think of the midfield options we've got. It seems like he's just irreplaceable in the team, like he's valued the same as a McTominay, a McGinn, or a Billy Gilmore, which is just really, I don't know. I can't get my head around it, to be honest.
And look, I'm not going to be too critical of somebody like John McGinn because he's done for Scotland and obviously had that record caps appearance tonight, which congratulations to him. But
75, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at him again in this game, and that we've been critical enough of the likes of McLean and Hanley and Ralston. I'm looking at him again in a game where we need these guys to be so influential. I don't think McGinn done nearly enough this game.
No.
I don't think any of them did. I mean, there's a huge problem. I mean, we've barely even touched on the striker department. There's a huge issue up there as well. It seems like as soon as we get into the final third, we just don't know what to do with it. It's so flat to watch up there.
I mean that's that's kind of we've had this conversation on the show for years, like, but Anna Lino says on Facebook, you got Pandy, well before an Italian Player of the Year, Ferguson. And Robbie, you said earlier on, an LCM7 on YouTube, it was saying, do you believe that was a 3-0 loss? I think we were lucky to get 3-0 tonight, guys. I don't know about you as well. Yeah, so back to my point that I was going to be making it, and I think I'm a broken record when I say this, guys. I'm sorry, but the game at Wembley, right, when we drew 0-0, in fact, we should have beat England that night as well. We had mountain chances that night. But my point was that it was a good performance, but nobody's actually coming through in the striker department because that's, I mean, we've got nobody coming through up front or whoever, and that's worrying. And we're still having the same conversation 2 years on, Robbie, and it's not, and I'll keep saying this, we're not having anybody coming through the system. Maybe not having anybody coming through the system. Maybe that's a bit unfair, but they're not given the chance. Like Brendan Miller.
Yeah, exactly that. But we do have now, but they're not getting in the team. We're seeing players like Conway, Wilson getting on the pitch. That's all well and good when you're 3-0 down in a game versus Greece where you've lost. These guys, I mean, I'm even looking at the likes of Tommy Conway, who, again, got on the pitch, but this is a guy that's been brought in, and he must be wondering what he's going to do to get in front of Adams. Now, look, I think Adams can bring quality to Scotland. I always remember that goal against Denmark at home. I think that's where they really showed what he can do. Has he been that same player? No, but I still think he can bring his quality. But see, when someone like Che Adams isn't having a good game, get him off so much early. We go back to Thursday, and yes, majority of the team shouldn't have been unchanged. Looking, if you looked at Thursday, but before the game, I don't think much of the squad should have been changed. But I don't even think Adams was half decent on Thursday. Again, I think he was really poor on Thursday. I just think we can get someone that gives us so much more. I mean, Hurst came on the pitch, not for long, but you could see he wanted it a lot more. You could see he was a lot more up for it than Adams looked. So we've got options, but Michael, if you looked at the Euros, and we said after each of Euro games, we've got them to coming through here, and it was valid at that point. But now Clark's got no excuses. We have players on the bench that can come on and make an impact for Scotland.
Yeah, definitely. I think we have options. I think we just lack a sort of somebody that's standing out to us, the sort of quality. Adams he's been hit or miss for Scotland, but he's not scored in I think he scored one goal, since the Denmark game. It was against Gibraltar, and that's in like 20 games for Scotland. Maybe a little bit less than that, sorry. But yeah, that's just not good enough for a striker. And if you're on a run like that, and you've got players who Tommy Conway, who's done well in the Championship this season. I know Adams has done well in Serie A, but that's like the Greece manager. He's got Pavlidis, who's doing very well for Benfica, but he didn't play him in the first game because he's not doing well for the national team. So if he's not doing well for the national team, then get him out and give someone else a chance. And I think that's what he should have done. But yeah, I don't know. It's just disappointing. The one thing that I've thought of in the past that we could maybe do, but it maybe be a wee bit, I don't know, maybe McTominay up front. I don't know what you think of that.
Well, we nearly scored a few times tonight.
Yeah. It could work, genuinely, because I think McTominay's got the ability to play up front. Clark will never do this. What I like, but is the two up top. If you had McTominay and then you had somebody after him, I think that would work a lot better. Just to quickly update, Ronaldo's missed a penalty for Portugal, so that's pretty big. Obviously for us, we sort of. Well, I think most of us want Portugal to beat Denmark tonight, so that's a pretty big missed penalty. But no, even I agree with you. I think McTominay could work up front. But I want to see these other guys, a striker with no touched on. Kevin Nisbet was in the squad and didn't even get a look into the striker position. So that's another player that can come on and try and do something maybe.
He was a sub tonight as well.
You would never have thought it. Never have thought it.
I mean, I don't know, but like, I mean, obviously we can have a counselling session and speak about this game further as well. But obviously we're running out of time. Thank goodness for that, compared to first game night. But going back to that line that you said earlier on about Skibby Clark talking to the media after the game, there's only so many times you can get away with saying that, Robbie.
There is. Clark's come out and said it multiple times after games. It's always after games it's not good enough. I should have made changes. Well, come out in September and make the changes then. And I think that's a good thing for Scotland. We don't play a competitive fixture again until September. And to be honest with you, I know we were sort of speaking about the Clark situation earlier. If we don't play again until September, there's a strong possibility that a manager could become available in that time. That is a long time before we play another game. So by that point, I'm not even so sure Clark will be still in the job.
I mean, I hope you might be right, but I don't know. I think they might just stick with him, because I think if there was going to be one time to let go of him, I think it would have been after the Euros. So I think they might stick with him through this campaign. He says he's going to leave anyway. I don't want that to be the case, because if there's a better manager that becomes available, I want him to be in charge, because I think we've underperformed for a while now in the grand scheme of things. Yes, we've got decent results recently in the Nations League, but at the end of the day, no one's going to remember those results. They're going to say we came third in the group and got relegated ultimately. Euros campaign wasn't good enough. Qualifying campaign was brilliant, although we sort of crawled through it at the end. So I think it's not been good enough for a while now under Steve Clark, and I think it'll take a lot of convincing on my behalf that he's the right man for the job, unless he obviously gets us to the World Cup. But I don't have little to no optimism of that happening. Even with what goes on in Lisbon tonight between Portugal and Denmark.
I mean, I knew a lot of Scotland fans, Robbie, that wanted Skibby Clark to go after the Euros, as Ethan was saying, and and I'm ashamed to say I was one of them, because I was so disappointed, especially after that kind of like last game as well, that we put all our efforts in, and then to not turn up.
Yeah, I mean, I was one that after the Euros wanted Clark to actually stay. I sort of had my cap on, trying not to be too harsh on them, because I felt at the time it was just a bit reactionary, which is strangely enough, Ethan, I know you mentioned it earlier, I don't think tonight's reactionary in my opinion. I think every criticism of Steve Clarke and the players is justified after that performance. That's one of the worst performances we've seen for Scotland in a good while. So for me, it's just I just don't look at the World Cup qualifying and have any hope that Clarke can get us there, which is weird because again he's got us to 2 Euros. It's obviously different, but I think the thing that frustrates me more is I'm looking at the World Cup qualifying pot and I think we've get let off. I think if you look at the World Cup qualification, we could have get so much worse in our group. So that's what's probably going to frustrate Scotland fans the most after the qualification's finished. If we don't qualify, we will look at the likes of Belarus and although Greece are getting better and they are a good team, and then we'll look at Portugal or Denmark and go, we had a real chance here and we blew it maybe because we kept Steve Clarke in the job.
Okay, a very disappointing performance from Scotland tonight. If I was the SFA, I would probably just cancel the 2 friendlies now because they don't really mean anything. But I'm trying to be positive, but very difficult to be positive. Thanks to Robbie, thanks to Ethan for joining us on a very disappointing Euro special tonight. We'll be back on Friday with the main show of the locker room for the weekend. Just to give another wee mention to this, on Tuesday night, a locker room special focusing on youth football. And I think we've mentioned youth football about 55 times tonight on the show, but between the previous show and the now. So we'll be on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. And thanks to Ethan, thanks to Robbie, thanks to everybody at watching tonight, and we'll be back on Tuesday at 7:30. But from a very disappointed counselling session, thanks for watching.
All the build-up and reaction to Scotland in the Nations League.